Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to today's SecurityBoulevard.com program, brought to you by Techstrong and ThreatX. My name is Cody J. Brown. I'm the host of Techstrong Learning, and we have an exciting panel ahead. First, I do need to cover just a couple of housekeeping notes. Today's session is being recorded, so if you miss any of our discussion, maybe you'd like to rewatch or share with a friend, the on-demand recording will be made available shortly after we conclude our live session today. If you have any questions, and this is going to be kind of a fireside chat type of format, so we really do want you to send in those questions. You can do so on the right side of the screen using that Q&A tab. Over there, you'll see a couple of other options. You'll see there's a chat tab, and we'd like you to start warming that up now. Let us know from where you're tuning in or maybe what role you play in your org. We will have 2 polls that will launch throughout today's program, so we do really want your participation there. And as always, before we close out, we are giving away 4 $25 Amazon gift cards. So the topic of our discussion today is Winter is Coming, 2023 security predictions and strategies to weather the storm. And I'm joined by Jeremy Ventura, Field CISO at ThreatX, and Mayor Aknin, founder and CEO of Cyberwar US. So Jeremy, Mayor, thank you both so much for joining us. But just to look at some topics we'll be discussing today, we'll be looking at some overview of perspectives on how security leaders should resource in 2023, upcoming trends in 2023, and building a security program with balance. Jeremy, you want to take us a little bit through on what exactly we're going to be discussing within these topics?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Cody, and thanks for the great introduction. Super excited to be here with my good friend, Mayor Aknin, who I've met many times, and we've had the pleasure of being on multiple discussions and panels before in person. So Mayor, thank you again for joining me. Just a quick little background on myself. My name is Jeremy Ventura. I am located in Orange County, currently in Boston, Massachusetts. But I work for ThreatX, which is the leader in API security attack protection. And so I am the field CISO. So my role is to do a lot of thought leadership, evangelism for the company, kind of being the face and the voice, but also making sure we partner with our customers, our partners, and go to supply chain to make sure that everyone is secure. They are feeling the love from ThreatX, and to make sure that we are also providing the best security strategies for them. A little bit about my background. I've been in many different fields, from email security, vulnerability management, incident response, working for companies such as IBM, Tenable, Mimecast, and others. So quick little introduction to me, but Mayor, I'll turn it over to you for your great introduction as well.
All right, thank you. I don't think I will be able to introduce myself like you did. In my background, I'm from Israel. I moved to the US about a year ago, now located in Los Angeles. In Israel, in the past, I established the National Incident Response Department for the Cybersecurity Bureau. I led some of the incident response teams for different organizations. And on 2014, I established Cyberwar. We provide cybersecurity professional services for organizations. Usually, we work with medium to large enterprises, helping them with prioritizing their security initiatives, simulating cyber threats and attacks, and helping them with their incident response capabilities.
Perfect. That's an awesome background. I know it's super impressive as well. Every time I'm with you, everybody wants to come up to you after you've done your speeches and pick your brain, especially having your background, starting that CERT and that incident response team for the Israeli Defense Forces. So super interested, and we look forward to kind of your thoughts on especially this topic today. So without further ado, let's get into it. So today's topic we're calling Winter's Coming. As we know, kind of looking into fast forwarding into 2023, we've got challenges from a security industry, whether that is coming into an economic recession, or if we're already in one, what that means retaining and hiring talent. Also, threat attackers and threat techniques are evolving faster than ever, and security has always kind of felt like we always have to play catch up. And so really the goal here today is to talk a little bit about some of those challenges, but also leave the audience feeling somewhat good about going into 2023. I know as an industry, sometimes we can be very pessimistic, right? We can be kind of very sad and, kind of always the bad. But, today we definitely want to leave with some tips and recommendations on, what is that one or two things that you can leave with and you can do this week, right? We can do or be better prepared for ourselves for 2023. So without further ado, Mayur, I'd love to start with you and just kind of get, everything you've been doing with your industry and your company, providing incident response services and, tabletop exercises for your companies and your customers alike. Love to get your thought process about, kind of what are you hearing coming into 2023?
So I'm hearing a lot of things, and with some I can, I agree and I can take, but some are way too far away. So generally speaking, I hear a lot of predictions, right? And it very depends on who predicts it and what's his interest on predict it. I think that the main issue here is that we always try to catch new, shiny, buzzy, techie words. So we starting from the word cybersecurity, which before was information security, and nothing changed. Basically, nothing changed. But it was a buzz, a new buzzword, new marketing tool that allowed other companies to sell more. And today you hear the same things. So you hear all about the quantum computing and how the AI will affect stuff. And of course, it will, right? It will. I'm not ignoring it. However, I think that in most cases, and this is at least from my experience with most of the organizations, this is shouldn't be their concern. Okay, their basic cybersecurity hygiene is not there yet. They are not focusing on the boring stuff, right? There is so much boring stuff that you need to do in cybersecurity in order to make sure that your company is protected. Start with your inventory, know what you are protecting. Start with know who are you protecting from. So I think that in general, if I try to think about predictions, and I'm not a prophet, is probably nothing will change. To tell the truth, the attacks will be more severe for sure, because our digitalization is more thorough now, and we based on the technology more than ever. So the attacks will be more severe. There will be new techniques. Probably there will be new threat actors in the market, but they all will use the same basic and fundamental stuff that most organizations are not protecting yet.
Yeah.
What do you think about it?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you're 100% spot on, right? I think we see it. I've worked for a lot of cybersecurity vendors and competed against other top cybersecurity vendors. And when you have strategies where, the marketing buzzwords come out, right? And we can talk about it, and I'm a very open person, whether it's XDR, whether it's SOAR, whether it's, whatever the next
Zero trust.
Zero trust, right? No matter what it is, at the end of the day, they work, right? Because people do still, at the end of the day, buy, right? It's almost in this concept of, in order to make myself look good and make my organization look good, maybe I should go and tell the board, hey, I need funding because I need to go buy X tool. But you brought up a good point. Is X tool really still going to stop some of the threats or some of the challenges that we're facing in industry? You brought up a great point, right? And we could probably do a whole session on cyber hygiene and the fundamentals.
Oh, absolutely.
Over and over and over again, when we see breaches, what's the weak link? It's the cyber hygiene. Oh, I didn't know I had that server there. That vulnerability's been out for 4 or 5 years. I didn't even know it existed. I have no visibility into it. I didn't patch it. Or I had this open vulnerable VPN, right? And the organization got in. Or even this one. Yep, somebody in our department, whatever, HR, marketing, finance, even security, someone clicked in that phishing email and computer got wiped, they infiltrated the network, whatever it might be. And when you look at some of these threats and you look at some, and you just look historically at how the attacks and the techniques have evolved over time, to your point, the attackers are getting more sophisticated, right? They're getting smarter,
For sure.
finding more new creative ways of how to get into organizations. But a lot of these times, more times than not, a lot of these can be reduced if the organizations were doing basic fundamental things. Let's enable two-factor, for example, right? Let's gain visibility into who owns what endpoint or what asset. I too many times have I seen organizations where they just don't know, right? And so I guess going into this a little bit, as we kind of look it forward into 2023, right? We could talk about all the time, making sure you're doing the hygienes, making sure you look at that. Kind of in a different approach here. Where do you see it going? And I really want to dig into a little bit of your background, right? I mean, Israel being one of the most attacked nation states, right?
Yeah,
so from your experience in the past and kind of what you're doing now, we are in kind of a geopolitical crisis as well, especially with everything that's going on between Russia and Ukraine. And we've seen different threat acting groups. Killnet is one that I talk about all the time in blogging, how they're putting bot attacks and DDoS attacks against, even here in the United States, against airports. I want to turn it over to you, Mayor, and ask you, from a geopolitical sense, where actually are we headed? Let's talk a little bit about 2022, everything that's kind of inspired, and what does it look like in your prediction, being on the front line and attacking and defending your organization and your country?
Yeah, so maybe it's even a broader question because when you talk about cybersecurity and the new, where the world goes, right? How the future will look like. So you hear a lot of sayings of how will the new warfare will look like? The real war, right? And at the past, a few years ago, you always heard that the next war will not look the same. You will not see tanks, you will not see aircraft, you will not see soldiers. And it's kind of, not true. Eventually, you see now what's going on in Russia, you see what's going on in China and so on. So the war is still a war, and it's people's lives that are involved in. The cyber layer, or the cyber thing, let's call it, it's just supporting the war. Okay, so when a country wants to gain its to achieve its goals in the war, they definitely can use cyber in order to support her to go there. What it really means is that we will see a more sophisticated attacks on regular and civilian companies. If before APTs, what is called APTs, advanced persistent groups, which are more the state level, right? The state-funded groups. If they before were targeting governments, today and in the future, we will see more and more targeting against regular companies, commercial companies. The reason for that is that when they have the persistent in these companies, on the day they want to use it, it's a lot of power. They can shut down markets. They can shut down economies. They can turn these companies' resources to work against their own countries. Okay, so we saw it, the great example of the Mirai botnet. They distributed a malware in millions of cameras, right? Web cameras. They didn't do anything until they decided to do. And then just on a click of a button, they turned all of these cameras and all of these IoT devices to be the attacker's themselves.
Yep.
So I believe that it will not change in the near future. A war is still a war. There is blood everywhere, and there will still be. But definitely, the cybersecurity will take a more strong place in order to support that war.
Right. And I think you bring up a great point that, the one thing that I'm kind of taking away from your statement here is no one's immune, right? Small businesses here in the United States, government organizations and allies to whatever it might be, the opposition, I'll call it, right? And I think here's a great example. So let's talk about the Conti ransomware group, right? Conti ransomware going after and declaring a cyber war against Costa Rica. We saw in 2022 legitimately a ransomware powerful group declare cyber war. So when people say, where are we going? Oh, maybe we'll be in a cyber war and by 2030 or 2030, we're here now.
Here. We are in a cyber war.
We are.
Every day.
Exactly. And, it's interesting because I think this is, I was asked probably last year about my predictions, right? I was asked last year at this time to write an article and write a piece about predictions going into 2022. And, you've kind of highlighted this already, but a lot of that really hasn't changed. And I think, when we look at things like geopolitical crises, which we're talking about now, but also kind of what the attacks are actually, or what the attacks are, like ransomware, that hasn't changed. It's only getting worse, right? Exactly. In the same sense. So, like we talk about, I remember last year at this point, I was like, I think we're going to be maybe in ransomware 3.0, or what some experts are calling it killware, which is really, it wasn't just about, encrypting the data. You went from encrypting the data to now charging organizations, right? Asking for Bitcoin, asking for payment, holding the ransom data. Now we're seeing part 3, where we're seeing ransomware groups either exploit or display and sell maybe the vulnerable exploits or the vulnerabilities of the exploits of how they got into the organization. Costa Rica, again, a great example. The Conti ransomware group attacked the Costa Rican government first. And then once the president declared a war and said, we're in a cyber warfare, we're not paying the ransom, Conti, after attacking multiple organizations and government websites and defacing them, said, you know what, we're going to sell the exploits. And who came in next? The Hive ransomware group. So now we saw 2 of the most powerful ransomware groups in the world attacking the same entity. And I think that's a scary thought. I think if there's backing of nation states, if they have powerful, like Conti ransomware, I know Lapsus is another one. There's been so many of them out there, right? And when you look at those, if they're backed or funded by nation states, we've got a real problem on our hand. And I think, going after we talk about all the time, going after those smaller organizations that may not be, when I say organizations, this can be nation government states as well. When we talk about that, the sophistication level, sometimes they're using archaic technology. They're struggling, like almost every organization, for resources and budgeting. And I think that's what's happening here is we're now seeing multiple groups combine powers together, right? Ransomware as a service is the word to describe this, and be like, you know what, we'll do the phishing campaign, you do the negotiation, you're going to do the encryption, we all make money, we're all happy, we all leave. And while we've seen, arrest happen all across the world for going at these targets, I think it's a scary thought that multiple entity and bad actors are teaming together to attack organizations. So I don't know if you had any thoughts on that, and kind of, do you think it's going to get worse? Do you think we're going to see continued ransomware as a service and those exploits being more damaging?
Absolutely. Eventually people must understand that it's business. It's nothing personal. Yeah, they attacked your organization. You took it personal, but for them, it's business. And I'm not saying it's a legitimate business, but it is a business. They are doing it for money. They are doing it for gaining more profits. And they have a lot of expenses as well, right? So it's just like any other business there is. So one of the ways that every other business work is cooperating with, other businesses. And instead of taking my own people, I can use others' workforce, right? And I'm not trying to have any legitimacy for that kind of business, right? I'm just picturing it as it is. Okay, these people are criminals, but they don't think about it like in a personal way. And I think this one thing is one of the changes that the entire attack surface experienced, because before, most cyber attacks were more ideologic. Okay, so all the hacktivists and all the attacks against government and things like that, which are not for a pure gain, pure money profits. Now you see that people, criminals, see that opportunity in this area. They say, well, why should I work so hard or risk myself in going and have a robbery in a bank, that I can do the same from my computer here, just from here,
and probably make a lot more money too.
Yeah, probably. Right. Much more easy, less risky, and more money. So, and take this initial position and now evolve it, right? It evolved all the time. So now what you see is basically the initial phase of a new economy of criminals, okay, where a lot of criminal groups are going together and combining forces against companies. The real problem here is not that this thing is happening because this happening with or without your will that it will happen. It happens. The real problem here is that on the other side, the victims, right, us, the companies, we are not grouping together against these criminals. We are not working together that much. So the knowledge sharing in our industry is really, really bad. You can see now more and more places where professionals are sharing their knowledge, but no one will disclose what is going on inside their own business because, it's very sensitive. No one will disclose what they saw or which attacks they had. So everyone on the victim side keep all the cards close to their chests and are not sharing this knowledge. So I guess that probably, for your question, yes, we will see more and more combinations and cooperations between gangs, right? Between cyber gangs. And their power will be exponentially increased than the power of each organization. And I guess that the knowledge sharing will not be solved in 2023. So I believe that it will lead to more sophisticated attacks, more severe attacks. And it's kind of, I don't like just to say how bad it will be, but it probably will be bad.
I mean, you bring up a good point here, right? And there's something I want to dig in a little bit more on one specific topic, because we do have a lot of audience members today and that are going to watch this even on demand that don't work for a major organization, a label brand that we all know, right? And they may be a one individual security team. I'm doing IT, I'm doing security, or I'm doing it all, right? Wearing many different hats, or they're partnering and resourcing to outside vendors, right, for that security. And so, the majority of folks that are on this, and majority of folks in the industry, that's actually the situation, right? Not everyone can work for the massive organizations and have we all wish we could have a 300-person security team 24/7 doing threat hunting and threat intelligence proactive. But, there's one topic here that I really want to talk about is you mentioned about information sharing is terrible, right? And that's pretty much what you said, right?
Yes,
industry, we are not very good at information. While we've taken better steps to get better, right? We've created more forums, some open source platforms, or even partnerships, conferences where we can share information, especially as we look at like different industries like banking. I know they've really evolved in a positive way in the last couple of years.
Absolutely.
However, as an industry, we're bad, and we have a long way to improve. Inside our own organizations, are we explaining security? This is another whole topic, but security inside of our actual companies. So let's talk about the C-suite for a second. So as a CISO or as a CISO for an organization, trying to gain buy-in from my other C-level executives is a difficult challenge, right? We've seen it over and over and over where we can't get the budgeting, we can't get the resources, we can't get the funding for a certain project or for new hires or even maintaining our current employees. Do you have recommendations? You partner with a lot of different organizations and a lot of different customers that, one, they've got to purchase your services in your company, but they need to be able to explain to their superiors or their counterparts, the CFO, the CEO of a company, why they need this. And I think as an industry, we kind of put this on ourselves. We have so many acronyms in cybersecurity, and understanding the language is very difficult for somebody that isn't in tune with cybersecurity on a daily basis. So do you have recommendations, or what can you recommend some of the viewers today about how do you even start? How do you start to have these conversations at the board level for organizations that struggle? Is there a way to accurately and efficiently and effectively be able to discuss and ask for a budget, ask for planning, ask for new projects with organizations or individuals that may not, like I said, live in our daily world? So Mayur, I know, like I said, I kind of want to pass it to you on this one because you have a lot of firsthand experience about how do you gain that buy-in, right? How do you build that security culture? So I'll turn it over to you to kind of get your thoughts for the viewers.
And I have so much to say. I don't think we have enough time, but what I truly think here is that if we think about the real root cause for that particular problem, is that most executives and boards, let's say, in organizations, they look at the cybersecurity as a technology problem and not as a business problem. And the first message that every security person should provide to these kind of executives is that we are here not to protect our technology. We are here to protect the business. If our network gets compromised, our business get damaged. Okay, and I think the whole conversation should be changed from both ends, right? The directors and executives and the CISOs and security staff, from a technology conversation to a business conversation. If I want to engage my board, I need to explain them the business impacts of anything that I'm saying. If I'm saying we need to be protected from supply chain attacks, okay, whatever it means, and if you are a director, you will not probably understand what I mean. If I will go there and I will just talk about the technology risk here, they will say, well, it's your problem, it's your job, deal with it. But if I will explain the business impacts of that, okay, and how the business will interfere, how the business operations will get affected, then they will have the motivation to listen to you.
Right.
They don't know technology, they know business, they know money, they know how their operation works. And I think that there is one more problem here, and it's actually in the name itself, CISO, okay, so Chief Information Security Officer, which, not everyone spell it the same. There are some that say CISO, there are some that say CISO. And I think this whole non-standardized role, industry, goals, it makes so many differences between different companies, different people. And you know what? I'm not blaming the directors who doesn't understand what I'm talking about, because a lot of CISOs don't understand what they are talking about, or everyone talks about different stuff. So I think that considering the fact that a lot of CISOs got to their position from various types of backgrounds. There are the technical guys, there are the legal guys, there are the people that came from IT, there are the people that came from development. So thinking about all of these backgrounds, you must talk at the same language, regardless of what your background is. You need to talk at the same language that your target audience is, which in this case is your executives and board of directors. If you want to get money from them, you need to talk with them the language they understand. So my one and practically only recommendation here is try as much as you can to translate your technical needs into business needs and impacts, and even try to attach it US dollars.
Yep.
Okay. So when you put money figures, dollar figures to your conversation, they will understand. They will understand the risks. The business is there. It's not yours. Okay. As the CISO, it's not yours. Your goal here is to point the directors to the right risks, and they need to decide and make their own risk management, what they want to deal with, what they want to take, and what they want to live with. Yeah, I think this is my main recommendation here.
Yeah, no, I mean, you hit it right on its head, right? I think as industry leaders, as an industry in general, we need to do a better job about translating our needs and our ask at a business level. I think a lot of that's on ourselves, right? And I've seen that too many times before, where individuals, I'll call it security leaders, even technology leaders, right, trying to explain to a CFO why I need X amount, or what I need this dollar amount for this project. Yeah, can be a difficult task when we aren't doing ourselves justice, when we don't know how to explain it inside of a business, in a business matter, right, in a language that everybody can easily translate and understand. Yeah. And yeah, you brought up something about risk management, and I'll leave it at this before our first kind of intermission, and we ask a poll here. But risk management, I think why as an industry we started struggling is because security in previous and historical times has always been the gatekeeper, right? For the most part, we say too many times, no. This is the conversation of risk management. Another topic we could probably do for an hour, right? But risk management needs to be looked at in a very different sense. As security leaders and individuals that are on this call, as we're looking at this, I do truly believe it's understanding. It's about not saying no. It's understanding what is actually acceptable, who's going to own that, and how do I manage risk to the threshold of whatever that severity might be. So if marketing, I'm picking up marketing, right? If marketing comes to me and says, we need to buy this new tool, and this tool is going to change the way we do things, right? And I look at it and I look, whoa, wait a second. They don't have, this organization hasn't done a SOC 2, Type 2, or I don't have the updated pen test, or whatever. They're not FedRAMP compliant, whatever it might be, right? Whatever we're going through as an industry. While yes, those are all pretty important things to have as a business for selling a technology, instead of 100% saying no, we need to do a better job about how do we manage that, right? How do we communicate to marketing that maybe it is not, it's not all about saying yes either, but maybe it's not a good fit for the security of our organization, or maybe it's, if the CEO says we're buying this tool no matter what, Jeremy, at the end of the day, you kind of have to buy it, right? And so you have to put the threshold and the management practices in place to make sure that the business is as secure as possible as we develop a new tool, as we partner with a new company, whatever that thing might be from a risk management standpoint. So I think it's kind of actually a perfect segue. Cody, I know you're still on. If we can do the first poll for the audience right now. We want to do this question here. where we're asking, what is your main focus area for 2023? And we'll talk a little bit about this as individuals go through this and enter. And I'll even submit my answer right here too. But we saw a couple different things up there, from endpoint security to a lot of organizations are still going through. Mayor, you mentioned this earlier, digital transformation, moving to the cloud, or even moving from one cloud provider to the next. So we're curious from an audience standpoint. We'll give it a couple seconds here. What is your main focus? And if it is other, we want to specifically put an other caption in there. I think that would be very interesting as well.
Yeah. So I will select other, and I will say that the main focus is increasing the cybersecurity hygiene, the basic cybersecurity hygiene of the company. And when I'm saying it, of course, it has a lot of these specific and particular tasks in it, like endpoint security and API security and so on. But when I'm saying it, I mostly mean for and a cyber incident will occur. Okay, it will occur, probably, no matter how hard you will try to avoid it. So you need to be prepared. I will put more resources on the preparedness side of the visibility, the detection, the proactive detection, which called threat hunting, and on the incident response capabilities, that once I get the hit, I will detect it as fast as I can, and I will respond to it as efficiently and quickly as I can. Once I have this in place, then I can now manage other risks that I can say, okay, from a business perspective, if I need to do 1, 2, 3, I can manage these risks because I know now that I have the visibility. I'm doing my best, of course, to prevent everything, but I also prepared to respond correctly. Yeah, and I think that's again what we see here. By the way, now you've shared the results.
Got a tie at the top.
Yeah, so I can. What we see here is, again, one thing that is going more to the technical perspective and not to the overall security management perspective,
right.
Which is, again, less techy, less buzzy, less interesting, but much more required. And one more thing about messaging and communicating with internal employees, okay, not necessarily directors or executives. One of the things that I see a lot of time in companies and interacting with security people is, and no offending anyone here, a lot of people a lot of people feel that if they speak more techy words, more buzzy words, they sounds better. They sounds more professional. They sounds, like you need me because I know these terms and you don't. And the truth is that as long as you speak the language that no one understands, no one will want to hear you. The long run, okay? So in the long run, if now you speak a lot of techy, buzzy words, maybe at the short term, people will think, oh, wow, he's really professional. But at the long run, when you cannot explain it and translate it to the language that they understand, they will just say, it's like reading a book in a language that I don't know. I don't feel interested anymore. So Yeah, I think the language needs to be changed. We can keep it in English, but let's keep it in plain English.
Yeah, no, and I think one thing that can help maybe, kind of the advice I always kind of give organizations is whether it's solutions or you're partnering with a third party, having raw data is very, very important. I firmly believe on um, metrics, right? And being able to benchmark. And there's a couple of reasons why, right? And I think we all talk about industry like, oh, I wish I had better benchmarking or better KPIs, key performance indicators, or better metrics, right? There's a lot of, again, going back to the acronym plays, right? We've got dwell time, we've got mean time to detect, mean time to respond. Those are all great, right? Those are all needed, especially in an incident response program. However, the board at the end of the day still doesn't really know what that means, right? No offense to anyone that's on boards, but like if you're not living in our industry on a day-to-day basis, yeah, you can probably understand what a mean time to detect is, but I always ask the question, but who cares? Or so what? Or why? Why is this important for my business? And so I think as an industry, when we look at metrics, and this is kind of another good conversation, but when we look at metrics in general, I think we need to do a better job, right? We need better metrics to be able to showcase what we're doing as an industry, what we're doing as a security team, how I'm protecting my business and my company, and making sure we translate that in those metrics effectively in the right format and the right wording for people to understand, right? So maybe it is, the one of the topics or one of the bullet points for this conversation today is kind of talking about 2023 and kind of braving that storm, right? And what organizations are doing. This is a good point from metrics to kind of where I'm going with this one is, Mayor, you mentioned a lot. I know what your prediction is for 2023 and what organizations do. Back to the fundamentals, right? Back to the cyber hygiene. And
Absolutely.
that's all very, very valid. I think as organizations, right, as we struggle, right, we know even cybersecurity companies today are going through layoffs, right? So we're not, as an industry, we're not immune to layoffs either. And that's a scary thought, right? And that's a scary thing. And I tell, individuals, prospects, customers, partners of ours here at ThreatX, when we're looking at 2023 and we're looking at the product, forget the product for a second. I think it's more important about building relationships, having those good metrics, right? Making sure you're partnering with the right security vendor that's a fit for your organization. But in addition to that, I think a lot of it comes down to the resiliency of the organization, right? And you kind of mentioned it before, like assuming the breach, making sure that, because you know what happened? No tool is perfect, right? What happens when the attacker bypasses your new fancy security tool and gets into your organization? So when we're going through this, like I think it's very important for security leaders to make sure we talked about translating the information, but making sure we're providing the right metrics for our company and going back to the fundamentals, but in a different approach. And not just going to cyber hygiene, but making sure we're not doing vendor tool sprawl, right? That's the big thing I'm talking about. We see it more and more and more every single day, especially as we get closer and closer here with a couple of weeks left to 23, where companies are just saying, hey, I don't have the budget for this. I really want to buy this tool or this product or this partner with this company, but I can't either afford it. It's not going to make a big fit. And as we're going through that, I think it's really important that we do an inventory and an assessment internally, especially as we come around the holidays, to make sure we're actively and effectively prepared for 23. Do I have the right tooling in place? Do I have the right people in place? Am I spending money on tools that are just sitting on the shelf, right? That happens in so many organizations, right? I think it goes back to, again, the fundamentals, right? But the fundamentals being a broader category of doing that basic cyber hygiene, but also going back to the basics and saying, okay, do I need this tool or not? And if I do, can I get it through another vendor? Is it going to fit my ecosystem? Is it going to fit the budget that I'm also planning to? So, Mayor, I know as you kind of partner in and talk to a lot of customers as well, are you still seeing that issue and that challenge where for some organizations, they have so many products and most of them aren't being utilized?
Absolutely. It's it's one of the problems of how budgeting in these organizations are working. Basically, your department gets some kind of budget at the start of the year, or on March, let's say, and now you need to decide how to spend it. And not always you think about the real professional reasons of spending it, but one of the reasons of spending it is that you need to spend everything. Otherwise, next year you will not get it. Okay, they will lower your budget. They will say, "Oh, if you don't need that, okay, we will take it to the marketing. Marketing always needs more money. Sales needs more money. We can give them more." So CISOs a lot of time in large organizations are spending unnecessary money on unnecessary tools just because it's easy and just because they need to spend it.
Right.
And I'm not even getting into the CapEx, OpEx expenses, capital expenses, operational expenses. If you want to spend money on tools, which is much easier than spend money on services and consultants and people and things like that. So yeah, definitely what we see tons of times is many duplications of different solutions at the same organizations that do the same things with overlapping features, overlapping capabilities. But on the other hand, none of them are utilized. None of them are well configured. None of them are well deployed. So if it deployed, if the company deployed it, this is the good scenario, and yet they didn't configure it well. They didn't utilize all the features. They didn't utilize all the capabilities. So they just, they deployed it, they put it there, they connected it to their SIEM, and now they have a false sense of security. Now they think they are secure, but practically they are not, because it's not well maintained, it's not well configured, and it's not well utilized. So it's very easy to bypass. And if I'm bypassing this security tool will not notify my SIEM SOC team. And you think you have a lot of visibility, but practically you are blind.
Right.
You are blind. So yeah, it's a huge problem. And again, it comes from, I believe that it comes from the same reason of, internal political problems of organizations. I want more money, I want more power inside my company, and so on. And a lot of times security professionals basically forget about the security. They just suck into the political problems inside their organization, and I don't blame them. Of course, it's part of it's life, basically. But yeah, I hope that if there are some people out there that hear me saying it, they will not get offended or pissed on me, but they will just say, maybe we can change some things here. And I think that the main thing they should do is working on the prioritization of their initiatives. I'm not saying you are taking too much money, right? Probably, large organizations need a lot of money for security, but the prioritizations, we see it time after time, that it's just not at the right, direction.
Right.
And yeah, I think that this is the main message here, and it also means how to work on the cyber hygiene. Okay, but you cannot just work on cyber hygiene, because cyber hygiene is a very broad term.
Yep.
Okay, when you need to work on cyber hygiene, you need to work on your specific company, your specific scenarios, and when you prioritize your specific security, then you are able to build a very good and thorough budget.
Right.
Okay. So yeah,
No, I mean,
this is my long answer to your short
no, it's all
question.
good. You brought up a couple little topics in there. I think it's good because I think as we go through and just life, right, and as time goes on, you brought up a lot of different points that I think we need to really evaluate or reevaluate as a security leader within our organizations. You talked about prioritization, making sure that we understand the business, right? What does my business do? Do I sell products? Do I sell services? Do I do both? Do I make whatever it might be? Do I make Christmas ornaments? Whatever it might be.
Yeah,
Right?
yes.
I'm sitting next to a pineapple right now. So do I manufacture and do the logistics of food? Whatever it might be. To your point, prioritizing your security based upon your industry, based upon your company needs is what's kind of most important. A little easier said than done, for sure, right? There's
Absolutely.
work that needs to be involved here, but you hit it right on its head. And I think it's a great segment here. I know we're almost coming up on time, but Cody, we're going to do our last poll right here, and it's kind of the theme of kind of what we've been talking about here. But on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being low, 5 being high, we want to see rate the security again, that bought-in level from your C-suite. 5 being our suite's super bought in. They understand exactly what's going on. Forget budgeting and processing, but they exactly know what's going on. So we'd definitely love to see kind of the audience results on that. And we'll let that sit there for a couple seconds and let everybody get their responses in. But, kind of looking at with the last couple of minutes here, wrapping up. And as we go into 23, I think both of us have given really, really good advice. We talked about some of the different challenges that we've seen in 2022, what we expect to see in 2023 from geopolitical crises. We talked about ransomware. We talked about supply chain attacks. We talked about the cyber hygiene and fundamentals and going back to the basics. And we've even started to already talk about some of the different tips and recommendations for security industries, whether you're that one individual, one person security team, or you're working for a major organization with a built-out team. A lot of those fundamentals still stay the same, right? Prioritization, risk management we talked about business resiliency. Is there, kind of with a couple of minute time left, is there something, Mayor, that you could leave the audience today with, saying, if you've got let's talk about prioritization. Can you prioritize pretty much everything we talked about and said, is there one thing that I can leave with today that I can go back, think about it tonight, and then go back to the board, go back to my team tomorrow and say, you know what, we may need to reevaluate this, or we need to get a little bit more visibility into one area of our program? What would that be, Mayor, for you?
So, I think that there are two things here. One is change your mindset to an assumed breached mindset. So don't think, oh yeah, I have this new firewall, so I'm protected, right? And leave it like that and lay off and just sit there and have fun. Think, okay, so what if my attacker managed to bypass this firewall? What then? And I think that the main, I wouldn't say what to prioritize, because every company is different, but I think that I can provide some kind of a framework if you want, to how to prioritize. So on one hand, think about your company as a business. Okay, what are you doing? Think about your customers. What is the customer's journey? Okay, how they see your company, how they interact with your company, how they buy stuff from your company. Okay, so this is one thing. And now think about your assets, your IT assets that supports this journey. Okay, what are my assets that support this operation? Because the whole point of technology is to support the business, support the operations, right? On the other hand, don't try to protect everything from everyone, because at the end of the day, you will end up with protecting nothing against no one. Think about your threats, your specific threats. Okay, are you a finance institution? Are you a healthcare provider? Are you a manufacturer? Okay, whatever you are, whatever your company is, who your threats are, learn them, see how they work, and always think that your threats are using our tools. Okay, so the attackers always use the security tools. They know the security tools. They know the security industry. They know how they operate. Do the same. Think like an attacker. Okay, use the tools of the attackers. Take Bloodhound, for example, and run it in your network. See the different attack paths, okay, and learn how your attackers work, how they see your network. Once you see that and you have the crown jewels in hand of your IT assets, the prioritization is the easiest part. No,
Yep.
you will get there directly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, you brought up a super important point, right? And the way I phrase it is know your enemy, right? And I know in your background, in your country, and kind of working for military defense forces, right? A lot of this kind of comes back to some of these military terms, even here in the United States, that we talk about, right? As you were talking, I was processing one thing, and it kind of brought up a concept that I've heard of before called OODA loops, right? Observe, orient, decide, and act, right? Old military term for dogfighting and fighter jet pilots here in the United States. And OODA loop, and you can apply this to cybersecurity. Observe your enemy, right? Find the tools, know the tools that they're doing. Orient, right? Make sure you understand the attack patterns, understanding the evolving threats that are happening. How's my industry being affected? What are other competitive companies that, if you're Coca-Cola and Pepsi is having incidents, right? What are they going through that maybe we're next, for example? Decide, right? The next part of this segment is deciding, right? Do I make this decision? Do I need this tool? Do I need the resources allocation? Do I need to stop this breach? Do I need to go back to the cyber hygiene? And the last point is act, right? Once you've gone through this process of observe, orient, decide, your last thing is acting, right? And that could be effectively communicating to the board, asking for the budget, asking for the resource planning. That could be acting as far as, yes, we're going forward, we're buying this partner, or we're going with this partner, going with this tool platform, or you know what? I am going to act. I am going to patch that server that's been sitting in my lab environment unpatched for 5 years, right?
Yeah.
There's no way nobody will have access to that, right? Wink, wink. We know what happens, right? We've seen it too many times. And, I said this on a recent podcast that I was doing, but sometimes it's an interesting concept, but I truly believe it. Sometimes negative events or negative consequences actually come out to positive outcomes. And I think that's the one thing as an industry, as we're evolving, as the world's evolving, as technology is evolving, attackers are evolving, it can be very, right, to say the least. And, I think it's one of those things to stay positive, understanding that we're all in this together. It goes back to information sharing, or threat sharing, right? We're all willing, for the most part, to help each other. And I think that's important, right? As an industry, we need to do better, but we also need to be there for each other as well, because this is not an easy job for anybody in security.
No.
A lot of stresses to this.
No, it's not.
Yep. So that would be kind of my recommendations, my advice. But without being said, without further said, Cody, I know you'll hop back up here. I think you have you had some giveaways. You want to wrap this up, but personally for me, Mayor, this has been super interesting. It's been a pleasure and an honor as always to share the virtual stage with you. So I want to thank you for your time as well, and wish you nothing but the best for your company, your family, and for you for 2023 as well. So without further ado, Cody, we'll turn it back over to you with a couple minutes left here.
Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Jeremy. I really appreciate the 58 minutes we just had of constant info. That was like a water hose that I'm trying to drink out of over here. That was awesome. Thank you both.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It was a real pleasure.
Of course. It was great to meet you, Mayor. Just a quick reminder to our audience that this session was recorded. Should you want to rewatch this, and I'm sure you will, you'll receive an email with a link to access this recording on demand, or you can find it living on the Security Boulevard website at securityboulevard.com/webinars. All right, onto those 4 $25 Amazon gift cards. Our winners are Liren A, Georgia P, Vernetta D, and David D. So to our 4 winners, keep an eye on your inbox to claim that gift card. But if you don't happen to receive that email, please do check your spam folder. I'd like to thank ThreatX for sponsoring today's session, and to everyone who's been with us for the last hour. Thank you so much for being here. We really value your time, and we also really value your feedback. So as soon as we close out, you will see a survey pop up on your screen. Take a couple seconds to fill that out for us. Let us know what you liked about our program today, what you'd like to see on future programs, or maybe just tell me hi, because I do read those. Otherwise, we do hope to see everyone at an upcoming Techstrong Learning program. Have a great rest of your day, and Mayor Jeremy, thank you once more.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Bye,
Happy
everyone.
holidays.